The first thing I noticed when I woke up in that Cancun hotel room wasn't the splitting headache or the taste of tequila still burning my throat. It was the silence. Complete, absolute silence, where there should have been the sound of my wife Sabrina breathing beside me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I rolled over, squinting against the brutal Mexican sunlight streaming through curtains we'd forgotten to close. The bed was empty, sheets cold. My stomach dropped, but not from the hangover. "Sabrina?" I called out, my voice hoarse and pathetic in the empty room. Nothing. I stumbled to the bathroom, checking every corner of our suite like some desperate fool. Her clothes were gone. Her suitcase vanished. Even her stupid pink toiletry bag that she'd insisted on bringing despite the hotel providing everything we needed. That's when I saw my phone, deliberately placed on the nightstand with a note underneath. The note was written in Sabrina's careful handwriting. "Check your messages, Danny. LOL." My hands shook as I picked up the phone. 17 missed calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize, and one text from Sabrina, sent at 4:47 a.m. "LOL, you looked so peaceful. Prank. I went home early. Figure it out. P.S. Your wallet and passport are at the front desk. Good luck explaining this one to your boss. Love you." I stared at that message for a full minute, reading it over and over until the words burned into my retinas. "Love you." She signed it, "Love you," after abandoning me in a foreign country as a joke. The room spun around me, and it wasn't just the hangover anymore. This was rage, pure and simple, building in my chest like a pressure cooker about to explode. I'd taken this vacation for her. Spent money we couldn't really afford because she'd been stressed at work, because her boss Eric had been demanding too much from his HR department. She'd begged for this trip, said we needed time to reconnect, to remember why we fell in love. And her idea of reconnecting was to drug my drink, because there was no way I'd gotten that drunk on what I remembered having, and abandon me like some college prank. The front desk clerk, a young woman with sympathetic eyes, handed me my passport and wallet with an apologetic smile. "Your wife? She leave very early. She say you understand." I understood, all right. I understood that Sabrina had planned this. The separate flight bookings she'd insisted on for the miles. The way she'd pushed drinks on me last night, laughing when I said I'd had enough. The mysterious phone calls she'd been taking, always stepping outside or into the bathroom. My phone buzzed. Another text from Sabrina. "Don't be mad, it's funny, call me when you get home." Then another. "Danny, are you getting these?" And another. "Seriously, call me, I'm starting to worry." I turned off the phone. The flight home was a nightmare of delays and connections, made worse by every buzz of my phone. By the time I finally turned it back on at Logan Airport, I had 71 missed calls and 43 text messages from Sabrina. The messages told a story of their own. They started playful. "Come on, don't be a baby about this." Then concerned, "Danny, this isn't funny anymore." Then desperate, "Where are you? I'm scared. Please call me." The final message, sent just an hour ago, "You'll regret this. I'll ruin you." There it was. The real Sabrina, finally showing her claws when her victim didn't react the way she'd scripted. I typed back a single message. "Don't rush home for me, Sabrina. I'm busy." The response came within seconds. What the hell does that mean? I turned the phone off again and drove home to our little house on Maple Street in Millbrook, Maine. The house we'd bought together 3 years ago, the one with the white picket fence and the mortgage that kept me up at night. The house where my wife had planned my humiliation while I'd been working 60-hour weeks to afford her lifestyle. Sabrina's car was in the driveway, and every light in the house was on. Through the kitchen window I could see her pacing, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling her sister Jenny or her best friend Marcy, spinning some story about her crazy husband who couldn't take a joke. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just watching her. really watching her, maybe for the first time in years. The way she gestured wildly when she talked, always the victim, always the center of attention. The way she'd check her reflection in every surface, even the microwave door. The way she'd positioned herself perfectly in the kitchen window, probably hoping I'd see her looking worried and feel guilty. Well, I felt something, all right, but it wasn't guilt. I walked through the front door like nothing had happened. Sabrina spun around, her face cycling through relief, anger, and something that might have been fear. "Danny, thank God. I was so worried. I called everyone. I almost called the police." "Did you?" I asked, setting my suitcase down carefully. "Call the police, I mean, to report that you abandoned your husband in Mexico as a prank?" Her face flushed. I didn't abandon you. It was a joke. You're always so serious, I thought." "You thought what, exactly? That leaving me stranded in a foreign country would be hilarious? That making me miss 2 days of work would be a great punchline?" "You're being dramatic. You had your passport. You had money. That you hid from me while I was unconscious." "You weren't unconscious. You were drunk." "Was I?" I stepped closer, and she actually backed up. "Good. Because I remember having 3 beers, Sabrina. 3. And I remember you insisting I try that special cocktail the bartender made just for you, the one that tasted like it had been mixed with NyQuil." Her eyes widened slightly, guilty as charged. "And then I remember waking up alone, abandoned, with a hangover that felt like I'd been hit by a truck." "Danny, you're scaring me." "Am I? Good. Because I was scared too. Scared and alone and humiliated in a country where I barely speak the language, trying to figure out why my wife would do something so cruel." She tried to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "Baby, I'm sorry. I really am. It was stupid, okay? Things have been so tense between us lately, and I thought if we could laugh about something." "Tense?" I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. "Things have been tense because you've been acting like a stranger for months, taking calls you won't explain, working late every night, treating me like I'm some annoying roommate instead of your husband. That's not— And your solution was to drug me and abandon me in Mexico." "I didn't drug you." "Then explain the hangover, Sabrina. Explain why I can barely remember anything after that cocktail. Explain why you thought I'd be unconscious long enough for you to pack, check out, and catch a flight without me noticing." She opened and closed her mouth like a fish, searching for words that wouldn't come, because there was no innocent explanation, and we both knew it. "I want you to sleep in the guest room tonight," I said quietly. "I need space to think." "Danny, please. Guest room, Sabrina. We'll talk when I'm ready to talk." I walked upstairs, leaving her standing in the kitchen with tears streaming down her face. But as I reached the top of the stairs, I heard something that made me pause. She was on the phone again, her voice low and urgent. "It's me. We have a problem. He's asking questions, and I think— No, I can't talk now. Tomorrow. Meet me tomorrow." I crept back down 2 steps, straining to hear more, but she'd moved into the living room. All I caught were fragments. "Told you this was risky." And, "If he finds out." And finally, "Love you too. Love you too." I stood on those stairs for a long time after she hung up, pieces of a puzzle clicking into place in my mind. The late nights, the mysterious calls, the sudden need for a vacation to reconnect, the prank that got me out of the way. My wife wasn't just cruel, she was cheating. And tomorrow I was going to find out with whom. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in our bed, my bed now, staring at the ceiling and listening to Sabrina move around downstairs. She made coffee at 2 a.m., ran the dishwasher at 3. I heard her crying around 4, but it sounded performative, like she was practicing for an audience. By morning, I had a plan. Sabrina was already dressed when I came downstairs, wearing her navy business suit and the pearls I'd bought her for our anniversary. Her makeup was perfect, hiding any trace of her supposed emotional breakdown. "I made coffee," she said carefully, like she was approaching a wild animal. And eggs. Your favorite. She had made eggs, scrambled with cheese and chives exactly the way I liked them. The smell should have been comforting, but instead it made me nauseous. This was Sabrina's playbook. Do something horrible, then overwhelm the victim with kindness until they felt guilty for being angry. Thanks, I said, pouring coffee into my travel mug. I'm running late. Danny, wait. Can we please talk about this? I know you're hurt, and you have every right to be, but I said I need time, Sabrina. How much time? Because I can't live like this, walking on eggshells, not knowing if my husband even wants to be married to me anymore. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost admired it. In one sentence, she'd made herself the victim and put the pressure on me to fix things. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe you should have thought about that before you abandoned me in Mexico. Her face crumpled. It was just a prank, Danny. A stupid, thoughtless prank. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. And what's worse, you enjoyed it. You signed that text, LOL, Sabrina. You thought my pain was funny. I left her standing in the kitchen, tears streaming down her cheeks. But as I backed out of the driveway, I saw her through the window, already reaching for her phone. At work, I couldn't concentrate. I sat in my cubicle at Morrison Tech Solutions, staring at lines of code that might as well have been hieroglyphics. All I could think about was that phone call, those fragments of conversation. Meet me tomorrow. Love you too. My phone buzzed with a text from Sabrina. I'm sorry, I love you. Please don't give up on us. Then another. I'm making your favorite dinner tonight. Pot roast with those little potatoes you like. And another. I threw away that cocktail recipe. I never want to see it again. The lies came so easily to her. She probably didn't even remember that I hated pot roast, that it was her favorite, not mine. Just like she'd probably forgotten that I'd told her a dozen times how much I hated surprises, especially cruel ones. At lunch, I drove to the Blue Anchor, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where my friend Nelson worked as a bouncer. Nelson had been my roommate in college, 6'4" of solid muscle and unwavering loyalty. If anyone would give me straight advice, it was him. I found him restocking the bar, his massive frame making the bottles look like toys in his hands. Danny, what brings you to my palace of broken dreams and cheap whiskey? I need advice, I said, sliding onto a bar stool. And maybe a drink. It's noon on a Tuesday, brother. This must be serious. I told him everything. The Mexico trip, the prank, the phone call I'd overheard. Nelson listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. So she drugged you, abandoned you, and now she's cheating on you, he said when I finished. And you're wondering what to do about it? I don't have proof she's cheating, just suspicions. Danny, my friend, you're a good man. Too good, maybe. But you're also naive as hell. He leaned across the bar, lowering his voice. She didn't drug you and disappear for a prank. She did it to buy time. Time to be with whoever she's screwing. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been thinking the same thing. What do I do, Nelson? First, you get proof. Then you decide if you want to try to save this marriage or burn it to the ground. He straightened up, wiping down a glass. But Danny, after what she did to you in Mexico, if it were me, I'd be shopping for matches. That afternoon, I made an excuse to leave work early and drove home. Sabrina's car wasn't in the driveway, which was odd. She usually worked until 6, and it was only 3:30. I let myself into the house and immediately noticed something wrong. There was a smell in the air, faint but unmistakable. Men's cologne. Not mine. My heart hammering, I climbed the stairs to our bedroom. The bed was made, but sloppily, not with Sabrina's usual precision. And there, on the nightstand, was a coffee mug I'd never seen before. Black ceramic with gold trim, expensive looking. I checked the bathroom. 2 towels hung on the rack, both damp. Sabrina always hung towels perfectly straight, but these were crooked, hurried. In the hamper, I found a men's dress shirt, size large. I wore medium. The shirt was expensive, Italian cotton with French cuffs, the kind of shirt worn by someone who wanted everyone to know he had money. And in the breast pocket, I found a business card. Eric Morrison, Regional Director, Morrison Tech Solutions. Eric Morrison, my boss's boss, Sabrina's boss. The room tilted around me as the pieces fell into place. The late nights at work, the stress about her demanding boss, the need to get away, to reconnect. She hadn't been stressed about work. She'd been sleeping with her boss, my boss's boss. And she'd drugged me and abandoned me in Mexico so she could spend 3 days in our bed with him. I sat on the edge of that bed, holding Eric Morrison's business card, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not just anger anymore, not just hurt. This was war. I put Eric's shirt back exactly where I'd found it, smoothed the bed sheets, and repositioned the coffee mug. If Sabrina wanted to play games, I'd play games. But I'd play to win. At 5:45, I heard her car in the driveway. I was in the kitchen, pretending to read the newspaper, when she walked in carrying grocery bags and wearing a smile that looked painted on. "Hi, honey. I got everything for the pot roast, and I picked up that beer you like, the dark one from Germany." I hated dark beer. She knew I hated dark beer. But I smiled and said, "That's thoughtful of you." She moved around the kitchen with nervous energy, unpacking groceries and chattering about her day. Work was crazy busy. Eric had us in meetings all afternoon, planning the quarterly review. You know how he is, always pushing for better numbers. I said, not looking up from the newspaper. "Eric Morrison?" She paused, just for a second, but I caught it. "Yes, Eric Morrison. You've met him, remember? At the Christmas party?" I remembered. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. The kind of man who shook hands too firmly and smiled too widely. The kind of man who would seduce his employee's wife because he could. "Right. How's his wife doing? Linda, wasn't it?" Another pause. I don't really know. We don't talk about personal things." Lie. But I just nodded and turned the page. Dinner was a tense affair, Sabrina trying too hard to be the perfect wife while I played the role of the slowly forgiving husband. She told me about her day in careful detail, constructing an alibi I was supposed to believe, meetings that ran long, traffic that was unexpectedly heavy, a stop at the store that took forever because of long lines. All lies, but told so smoothly that I almost admired her skill. "I've been thinking about what you said," she ventured as we cleared the dishes, "about things being tense between us. Maybe we should try counseling." "Counseling?" "To work through our communication issues. I mean, if I had realized how much that prank would hurt you, I never would have done it." More lies. She'd known exactly how much it would hurt me. That had been the point. "Maybe," I said. "Let me think about it." She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in days, because she thought she was winning, thought her performance was working. That night, she tried to initiate sex. Came to bed wearing the black negligee I'd bought her for Valentine's Day, the one she'd worn exactly once before, declaring it impractical. "I've missed you," she whispered, running her fingers down my chest. "I've missed us." I let her kiss me, let her hands wander, and felt absolutely nothing. This woman who had shared my bed for 5 years, who had promised to love and honor me, had become a stranger. Worse than a stranger, an enemy wearing a familiar face. "I'm still not ready," I said gently, moving her hands away. "I need more time." She pulled back, and for just a moment I saw frustration flash across her features. Then the mask slipped back into place. "Of course. I understand. I'll wait as long as you need." But she wouldn't wait. I knew she wouldn't wait. Tomorrow, she'd run to Eric Morrison, seeking comfort and validation. She'd tell him how cruel her husband was being, how he wouldn't forgive her for one little mistake. And Eric would comfort her. In our bed, with our sheets, while I was at work like a fool. But this time, I'd be ready. The next morning, I called in sick to work. After Sabrina left, I drove to Best Buy and spent $200 on a tiny wireless camera, the kind marketed to parents who wanted to keep an eye on their babysitters. It was smaller than a matchbox and could stream video directly to my phone. I hid it in the bedroom, tucked behind a picture frame on the dresser, with a perfect view of the bed. Then I drove to a coffee shop across town and waited. At 2:15 p.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the app and watched my wife walk into our bedroom, followed by Eric Morrison. They didn't waste time with conversation. Within minutes, they were on my bed, in my sheets, doing things that made my stomach turn. But I watched. I recorded every second, my finger steady on the screen even as my heart broke into pieces. When it was over, I watched them lie together, talking and laughing. I couldn't hear the audio clearly, but I caught fragments. Told him it was a prank. Such an idiot. When are you going to leave him? Soon, baby. Soon. I sat in that coffee shop for an hour after they left, staring at my phone, watching the video over and over. Not because I enjoyed it, but because I needed the anger. Needed it to burn away any lingering love or loyalty I might have felt. By the time I drove home, I was no longer Danny, the betrayed husband. I was Danny, the man with a plan. And Eric Morrison and my cheating wife had no idea what was coming for them. I spent the next week playing the perfect husband. I brought Sabrina flowers, complimented her cooking, listened to her lies about work with a sympathetic ear. All while the camera recorded her afternoon visits from Eric Morrison. By Friday, I had 6 videos. 6 different occasions where my wife brought her lover into our bed, into our home, into our marriage. But I didn't want just evidence. I wanted justice. That evening, Sabrina announced she was going out with her friend Marcy for drinks. "Girls' night," she said, kissing my cheek. "Don't wait up." I knew she was lying. Marcy had posted on Facebook about having dinner with her mother. But I smiled and told her to have fun. 20 minutes after she left, I was sitting in my car outside Eric Morrison's house. He lived in the fancy part of town, in a colonial mansion with a circular driveway and a 3-car garage. His wife's Mercedes was gone. I'd checked her Facebook too, and she was at a charity event downtown. I didn't have to wait long. Sabrina's Honda pulled into the driveway at 8:30, and she practically skipped to the front door. Eric answered in a silk bathrobe, pulling her inside with hungry hands. I sat there for 2 hours, watching their shadows move past the upstairs windows, and planned my next move. Monday morning, I arrived at work early and went straight to Frank Chen's desk. Frank worked in IT with me, a quiet guy with thick glasses and a crush on half the women in the office. More importantly, Frank owed me a favor. "I need help with something," I told him. "Something confidential." Frank looked nervous, but he nodded. "What kind of help?" "I need you to accidentally send an email to the wrong people. A very wrong email." I'd spent the weekend editing the bedroom videos, cutting them down to the most damning moments. Nothing pornographic, I wasn't that cruel, but enough to make it clear what was happening. Eric's face was clearly visible in every frame. "I can't send porn through the company email system," Frank protested. "It's not porn, it's evidence, and you're not sending it to everyone, just to a few specific people." I handed him a list: Linda Morrison, Eric's wife; Robert Hayes, the CEO; Jennifer Walsh, the head of HR; and Marcy Stevens, Sabrina's best friend and the biggest gossip in town. "Danny, I could lose my job." "Frank, remember when your sister needed that recommendation letter for nursing school? The one I wrote that got her into the program?" He sighed. "What do you want me to do?" An hour later, Frank's computer was hacked, and a mysterious email containing video evidence of Eric Morrison's affair was sent to 4 very specific recipients. I was in a meeting when the chaos began. First, I heard shouting from the executive floor. Then security was called. Then Eric Morrison was escorted from the building, his face red with rage and humiliation. By lunch, the entire office knew. Eric Morrison, regional director and pillar of the community, had been caught cheating on his wife with an employee. The videos were already spreading through social media, despite the company's attempts to contain them. And Sabrina had no idea what was coming. She called me at 2 p.m., her voice tight with panic. "Danny, something terrible has happened at work. Eric, my boss, he's been fired. There's some kind of scandal." "What kind of scandal?" "I don't know exactly. Something about inappropriate conduct with an employee. They're investigating everyone who worked closely with him." I could hear the fear in her voice. She was wondering how much they knew, how much evidence there was. "I'm sure you'll be fine," I said calmly. "You haven't done anything wrong, have you?" A long pause. "Of course not. But you know how these things go. Innocent people get caught up in the mess." That evening she came home pale and shaking. "They want to interview me tomorrow," she said. "About my working relationship with Eric." "Just tell the truth," I advised. "That's all you can do." She nodded, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was trying to figure out how to spin this, how to position herself as another victim of Eric's predatory behavior. But she was about to discover that the truth had already been told. The next morning, Marcy called Sabrina at 6 a.m. I could hear her voice through the phone, shrill with excitement and malicious glee. "Sabrina, oh my God, have you seen the video?" I watched my wife's face drain of color as Marcy described what half the town had already seen. Sabrina tried to deny it, tried to claim it was fake, but Marcy wasn't buying it. "It's clearly you, Sabrina. Everyone can see it's you. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. People are asking me how long I've known if I helped cover it up." After she hung up, Sabrina sat at the kitchen table and cried. Real tears this time, not the performative kind she'd used to manipulate me. "Danny," she whispered, "I need to tell you something." "I'm listening." "The scandal at work, it involves me. Eric and we've been having an affair." I let the silence stretch out, watching her squirm. "How long?" I asked finally. 6 months, maybe 7. I know it's terrible. I know I've destroyed everything, but I need you to know that I never meant for this to happen." Another lie. She'd meant for all of it to happen. The only thing she hadn't meant was to get caught. "The Mexico trip," I said. "The prank. That was so you could be with him." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Danny. I'm so sorry." Are you? Are you really sorry, Sabrina? Or are you just sorry you got caught?" She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved. But it was too late for that woman. She'd made her choice. "I deserve whatever you want to do to me," she said. "Divorce, whatever. I deserve it." I stood up from the table, looking down at her broken form. "You're right," I said. "You do deserve it." And then I walked out of the house, leaving her alone with the consequences of her choices. But I wasn't done. Not yet. The divorce papers were filed by Friday. I'd hired the best lawyer in town, a shark named Patricia Vance, who specialized in cases involving adultery. The prenup Sabrina had insisted we sign, to protect her family money, she'd said, turned out to protect me instead. Adultery voided most of her claims to my assets. But legal victory wasn't enough. I wanted Sabrina and Eric to understand what they'd cost me, what they'd destroyed. Eric was easy to find. After being fired from Morrison Tech, he'd been kicked out of his house by his wife and was staying at the Motel 6 on Route 1. His Mercedes had been repossessed, and he was driving a beat-up rental car. I found him at Murphy's bar on Saturday night, drinking alone and looking like hell. His expensive suits had been replaced by jeans and a wrinkled polo shirt. His silver hair was unkempt, and he had the hollow-eyed look of a man who'd lost everything. I bought 2 beers and sat down across from him. "Danny," he said, not looking surprised to see me. I wondered when you'd show up. Did you? I figured you'd want to take a swing at me, get it over with. I slid one of the beers across the table. I'm not going to hit you, Eric. He looked up then, confused. No? No, you're not worth the assault charge. He laughed bitterly. At least you're honest. Most people won't even look at me anymore. Good. We sat in silence for a while, drinking our beers and listening to the jukebox play sad country songs. She told me you were getting divorced anyway, Eric said finally. Said you'd grown apart, that you barely talked anymore. Did she? Said you were cold, unaffectionate, that you'd stopped trying. I took a long drink of beer. What else did she tell you? That she was going to leave you after the holidays, that she just needed time to figure out how to do it without destroying you. The lies came so easily to her, even when she was naked in another man's arms. And you believed her? Eric shrugged. I wanted to believe her. She's a beautiful woman, Danny, and she made me feel important, desired, like you were special. Yeah. She made me feel that way too, once upon a time, right up until she drugged me and left me stranded in Mexico so she could spend 3 days screwing you in my bed. Eric's face went pale. She said that was just a prank that went wrong. Did she? What else did she say about her devoted husband while you were rolling around in my sheets? He didn't answer, but his expression told me everything I needed to know. Let me guess, I continued. I was boring, predictable, bad in bed. Probably had a small dick too, right? Eric looked down at his hands. Danny, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. I finished my beer and stood up. Enjoy your new life, Eric. I hear the Motel 6 has cable. As I walked away, he called after me. She played us both, you know. Sabrina. She's not the woman either of us thought she was. I turned back to look at him, this broken man in his wrinkled polo shirt. No, I said. She's exactly the woman I thought she was. That's why I married her, and that's why I'm destroying her. The final confrontation came on Sunday morning. I'd packed everything I wanted to keep and loaded it into a moving truck. The house would be sold as part of the divorce settlement, but I wasn't waiting around for the paperwork. Sabrina was in the kitchen when I came downstairs with my last box. She'd been crying again. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. You're really leaving, she said. I'm really leaving. Danny, please, can't we try to work this out? I know I made a terrible mistake, but we can get through this. We can go to counseling. We can what, Sabrina? Pretend it never happened? Pretend you didn't drug me and abandon me in another country? Pretend you didn't bring your lover into our bed? It was just sex. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything. It meant you valued your pleasure more than our marriage, more than me. She was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I love you, Danny. I know you don't believe me, but I do love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me, the safety I represent, the stability, but you don't love me, Sabrina. If you loved me, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. I set the box down and looked at her one last time. This woman who had been my wife, my partner, my best friend, the woman who had promised to love and honor me, in sickness and health, for better or worse. You know what the worst part is? I said. It's not the cheating. It's not even the Mexico thing. It's that you never once, in all your apologies, took real responsibility. It was always a mistake, a prank that went wrong, something that just happened. You never once said, I chose to betray you. I chose to hurt you. I chose to destroy our marriage. Danny, you made choices, Sabrina. Every day for 7 months you made the choice to lie to me, to cheat on me, to make a fool of me. And when I found out, you made the choice to lie some more. I picked up the box and headed for the door. Where will you go? She called after me. Away from you, I said without turning around. As far away from you as I can get." The moving truck was idling in the driveway, and Nelson was waiting in the passenger seat of my car. He'd offered to help me move, to make sure I didn't do anything stupid in my final moments as a married man. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at the house one last time. Sabrina was standing in the doorway, still crying, still playing the victim even with no audience left to manipulate. "You okay?" Nelson asked. I thought about it. Was I okay? My marriage was over. My trust was shattered. My life was in boxes in the back of a truck. But I was free. Free from the lies, free from the manipulation, free from the constant wondering what I'd done wrong. "Yeah," I said, turning away from the house and the woman who had betrayed me. "I think I am." 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Sabrina had moved back in with her parents. Eric Morrison had left town entirely, owing money to half the businesses in Millbrook. The house sold quickly. I got my half of the proceeds and used it as a down payment on a condo across town. I never saw Sabrina again. Never wanted to. Some people said I was too harsh, that everyone deserves a second chance. But those people didn't wake up alone and abandoned in a foreign country. They didn't watch videos of their spouse betraying them in their own bed. They didn't know what it felt like to discover that the person you trusted most in the world was capable of such casual cruelty. I'd learned something important about myself in those dark months. I was stronger than I'd thought. Strong enough to walk away from someone I loved when they proved they didn't deserve that love. Strong enough to start over. Strong enough to demand better. And as I sat in my new condo, drinking coffee and reading the Sunday paper in peaceful silence, I realized something else. I was happy. Not the desperate, grasping happiness I'd felt with Sabrina, always wondering when the other shoe would drop. Real happiness. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth. The kind that comes from refusing to accept less than you deserve. The kind that comes from walking away from someone who would drug you and abandon you in Mexico as a prank. I folded the newspaper and smiled. Outside, it was starting to snow, the first snow of winter, a clean slate covering all the ugliness of the past year. Tomorrow was Monday, a new week, a new beginning, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was looking forward to it.